here. He's barking super, super loud. I don't know why. I've tried all the things, given him toys and treats, and he's already gone to the bathroom, all these things. And I think really what he wants me to do is hold him. I can't right now. All right. Today, or actually, we've heard about army ants. We've heard about elephants. And now it's time to move on to saguaro cactuses. I did not know that's how they were pronounced until just recently. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you about is, what do you know about cactuses? And that's what it says up at the top of this little screen right above it. And we've done this same routine over and over and over. And we do that so that you know what to expect and you know what I'm going to be asking for, so that you can practice the skill of determining important ideas. We want to keep everything else the same so that you really focus on practicing that skill and not trying to figure out something new when we're trying to really get you to learn that one skill very well. So again, I will read out of Lifetimes by David R. Rice. Is going to be about a saguaro cactus. You're thinking about it now of what you know about cactuses. The first time I'm going to ask you to listen and see what you can learn about them. And then the second time it's going to be what you think is the most important information for you to understand and remember that the author is trying to say. Okay, so you've had time to think about it. Let's see, I opened up the wrong page. It's page 20. And this is what a saguaro cactus looks like. A lifetime for a saguaro cactus is about 100. Saguaro would be rich. The saguaro grows rain for 8 or 920 degrees Fahrenheit. Most plants can't live in such a hot, dry place. When it does rain, the saguaro saves as much of it as it can. It stores up to 204 bathtubs full of water. Keep it alive until the saguaro thrives and grows up to 60 feet. Its wealth. Many desert animals grow for food and moisture. Native Americans who live in the desert use its juicy red fruit to make jam or syrup. And that was the saguaro cactus. What interesting things have you learned about the cactus? Go ahead and think about that. This is now the second read through where I'm going to ask you what is most important in this passage to understand and remember. And I want you to focus on that as we read together. So please follow along as I read. Davis is downstairs right now playing video games, and I could hear him through the house. So if you hear some screaming or yelling, that's what it is, okay? All right. A lifetime for a saguaro cactus is about 100 years. If water were money, the saguaro would be rich. The saguaro grows in the desert where it doesn't rain for 8 or 9 months at a time. The temperature can get as hot as 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Most plants can't live in such a hot, dry place. But when it does rain, the saguaro saves as much as it can. It stores up to 250 gallons of water in its thick stem to keep it alive until the next rain. Where most plants can't grow at all, the saguaro thrives and grows up to 60 feet tall. The saguaro shares its wealth. Many desert animals depend on the saguaro for food and moisture. Native Americans who live in the desert use its juicy red fruit to make jam or syrup. Okay? And then, so what do you think is most important to understand and remember in this passage? Okay. I think it's not such a little small detail that, for example, it's probably not most important to remember that Native Americans who live there can use the red juicy fruit to make jam or syrup. I would probably maybe think about something how the cactus is made. It's really made and adapted to live in that place where it is. That it kind of knows how to survive by saving. Okay. I think that's kind of it. I might have to even hear it again to really get the idea. If you feel that that's what you want to do, you can do that as well. I wanted to point again that this easy sentence starter or sentence starters that we can use is always saying is what seems important to understand and remember in this passage is. And the reason I think this is so that you're always saying what it is that your idea is that you're thinking and why you think that. So if I were to say, I think it's important to remember that the saguaro cactus, it can save or is really adapted well to live in the desert. And the reason I think that is because it saves the enough water from one rainfall to the next to survive. That might be the way that I give text evidence to support what I'm thinking. It is time for us to try Think, Pair, Write again. I wish we were in class again to do this so I could really be able to go through this new routine with you instead of Think, Pair, Share, but we'll try our best. So what do you think is most important to understand and remember from the passage about saguaro cactuses? Share your thinking with your partner, then write your ideas on the line below. If you have someone to share with, fantastic, please do so. If you're just going to go straight to writing, I would like you to take the time to think though. Some of you might have to hear the passage about saguaro cactuses again. Luckily, it's very short, but think on it. What is important to understand and remember? And maybe you also want to think, remember that other question was, if you had to put the passage into one sentence, what would it be? So if you really had to think of what you need to understand and remember from this passage, or maybe how could you say what was really important in one sentence, what would it be? And then why would you say it? So that was the easy sentence starters is this is what's important, what you think is important to understand and remember, and then the reason that you think that. Next, another one. Another one. I always think of the DJ Khaled when I hear that there. I don't know if you know who that is, but is someone who raps the song and he says that. Maybe I should find the music and play it somehow. Okay, after saguaro cactuses, the next thing are hermit crabs. So then the first question, of course, would be, what do you think you know about hermit crabs? I will wait. What do you think you know about hermit crabs? I'm going to read it twice. During the first one, I want you to think about what you're learning about hermit crabs. A lifetime for a hermit crab is about 5 years. Hermit crabs are very good at taking action to make their lives better. Nature doesn't give them a shell for protection, so they find shells that are empty and recycle them. They use these shells like motorhomes until the crab gets too big for them. A motorhome is a vehicle that you can live in and drive around in and stuff. Okay, so they use them like motorhomes until the crab gets too big for them. Then they move into larger shells. Another neat trick of the hermit crab is to put a sea anemone on top of its shell. I think it's on this picture here for you. It's a sea creature that kind of looks like a flower, and these tentacles right here are poisonous. That's around its mouth. These little tentacles are poisonous. Okay. Let's see. The poisonous arms of the anemone keep an octopus or squid from eating the crab for dinner. Since sea anemones can't move around very well by themselves, piggybacking on the crab is a special treat that allows them to find food as the crab moves along. Very interesting, huh? So the question at the bottom of the screen now is, what is something interesting that you have learned about hermit crabs? I did not even know there was a GIF of this guy saying it over and over. I looked it up real quick because I was thinking of that DJ, and all of a sudden I found him saying it over and over and over again. So here we go, another one, right? So follow along as I read. The first time you were learning facts about, or you're trying to learn facts about hermit crabs. The second time is looking what is most important and to understand and remember in this passage. So a lifetime for a hermit crab is about 5 years. Hermit crabs are very good at taking action to make their lives better. Nature doesn't give them a shell for protection, so they find shells that are empty and recycle them. They use these shells like motorhomes until the crabs get too big for them. Then they move into larger shells. Another neat trick of the hermit crab is to put a sea anemone on top of its shell. The poisonous arms of the anemone keep the octopus or squid from eating the crab for dinner. Since sea anemones can't move around very well by themselves, piggybacking on the crab is a special treat that allows them to find food as the crab moves along. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When I was younger, it was a little bit hard for me to find important information or ideas in text. I always had to read them a few times. And when I was growing up, I always thought that that wasn't a good thing, that I should be able to get it on the first try. Like if I heard it, I should be able to immediately know what's the important information to understand and remember, and what are the details that go with it. And now that I realize as I'm older and as a teacher, actually, the more times you hear it, the better you get not only at finding what's important to understand and remember, but you really understand what the author was trying to say. And it's actually better for you to listen to it a few times and think on it before you just go, oh, hermit crabs, it's important for me to understand that they don't have shells. And really, that's not what the author was trying to say in this passage, even though they talk about not having a shell and moving into one. It's something deeper. So go ahead and think on this, and then we'll come back in the next part so that you can talk or share more of your answer of what you're thinking. As you can see, for this activity, it has taken the word pair right out. It wants you to think and then write. And I think it's because it's the fourth lifetimes story that we've heard, or passage that we've heard by now, so that there's been enough practice of hearing it and thinking about the first time of what you learned, and then the second time of what's important. We've practiced it enough. So now instead of saying, I think this, and now I want to talk it out with you, it just asks you to think and write. So it says, what do you think is most important to understand and remember from the passage about hermit crabs? Write your ideas on the lines below. Now, don't forget, we use these easy sentence starters that help us really frame our answer, where we can say what I think is most important to understand and remember in this passage is, and the reason I think this is. If you need to go back and listen to the passage about the hermit crab again, do it. Maybe you listen to it a few times to really try to think about what the author is trying to tell you. What's important about this crab and the way it lives its life? And finally, for the last part of this lesson, it's time to review these reading strategies in the corner so that during IDR you can use them if you need them. And so then also that you can notice what you learn from your reading and think about which ideas in the text seem important to understand and remember. So not only are you looking at these reading strategies and saying, hey, if I get stuck, if I don't understand something, or if something's confusing, I'm going to use these reading strategies. And while I'm reading, I'm going to try to see if I notice any themes or any lessons that the author is trying to tell me through what's important to understand and remember. So enjoy your IDR time, and I will see you again soon.